If you guys can hear us, please let us know. Just type a comment in there so that we can know we're actually reaching some kind of audience. If not, it's got to be the quietest, quickest stream you've ever seen. I'll type it up in chat as well, so hopefully you can read it.
Yes, we've got a yes.
Woohoo! So we've got
one listener.
Thank you, Andrew Merry, for confirming we do have some sound. Sorry, this is very much an internet issue. This is a streaming service issue, not at our end. We hope all our mics are working, and we're back in business. So pretty much, I think, Sophie, you were just talking about Northern Ireland in particular, and what we. So first of all, though, guys, Sophie and I can hear each other. So if we do drop audio again, someone just tip us the wink, and then we'll sort it from there. But Sophie, we were sort of talking about the sort of devolved governments and potential funding there. So if you just recap on what Northern Ireland was doing.
So yeah, this was looking more specifically at the sporting bodies in the different countries within the UK. So Sport England and Sport Wales have set aside emergency funds to help people who are in need during the current crisis. Sport Scotland have got a lot of helpful advice to save money and to also look at applying for grants and loans. And similarly for Sport Northern Ireland as well. What it seems with them all is that they are still committed to providing funding to those clubs and organisations that they are already committed to supply funds to. It seems that Sport England and Wales have the most information available at the moment, but I'm sure things will evolve as time goes on. So yeah,
excellent. And I think anyone that's just joining or rejoining us back again, if you have any questions, keep firing them through about what we're talking about. So Sophie, we've focused very much at sort of so far talking about the current situation and almost, if you like, crisis funding, crisis management, keeping sports related businesses going. What other opportunities do we have? Are there any other ways we should be thinking about this particular time that we're in at the moment?
I think, as we mentioned earlier, we want to look at this time as being a time for opportunities and grabbing opportunities rather than seeing it as a huge problem, which of course it is. But we want to try and see the positive side of things and try and use this time wisely. Whilst we may have skeleton teams working at the moment, so we're on reduced staff, we're maybe on reduced pay, we want to try and keep that morale up and look to the future and think about where we want organisations or sports clubs or facilities, where you want to be next year, where you want to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, and really start thinking ahead. So we've sort of got that time to sort of put to thinking about perhaps development projects, improvements, perhaps to your sports fixtures and things like that. There may be things that you've been putting off for a while, the timing's just not been right, or you've not had the right funding to put towards them. And of course, funding's probably quite an issue right now. But that's why we've been trying to have a look through the internet and do a bit of research for you guys to see what funding is available out there, to look at funding capital projects and bigger projects that you may want to look at beyond just ticking over during this current crisis, because it will end and we will get back to normal and people will start playing sport again. And so we want to make sure that we've got the best facilities that we can have when people are coming back to us. So maybe you want to make your facility more multifunctional, look at other opportunities for sports. So what would that involve, and how would you get there? So yeah, that's what we've been trying to look at.
I mean, I think so. I'm just going to follow up on that in terms of, so what kind of developments could sports facilities, albeit whether that's sort of golf clubs, multi-sport sites, football clubs, cricket clubs, what kind of developments can folk be actually looking at right now, which are going to be helping them into the future, and sort of building resiliency, but also improving their overall infrastructure?
So it's so wide ranging. It can be anything from your team wanting new football kits, something as simple as that, right up to new pitches or the purchase of land to develop a whole new sports facility. A lot of the funding revenues have a real emphasis on making sure that whatever you want to do, it is beneficial for the local community, and it's not just exclusive to perhaps your membership. For example, there's funding that's available through the landfill scheme, where they won't fund sport-related projects per se, but say if you've got a clubhouse or I don't know, a football ground sort of facility building that you could maybe let the local community use to hold meetings or whatever, and it benefits the local community, then there's funding available to help with improvements on those sorts of projects. And then beyond that, there's funding for nature conservation, which of course might not necessarily directly benefit, if you like, your sports facility, but indirectly impact it in that it may bring more members in. It's health and well-being is a huge thing that we should all be focusing on. So if we can look at projects that will enhance that, then there's funding available for that too. And what a great time to sort of promote that as well, as people are, want to improve their health and well-being more than ever.
Absolutely, and I guess development and sort of developing businesses and facilities, you've develop or stand still and sort of lose your place in the community and the market, the ecosystem that's there for sport. So as well as sort of developing facilities for if you like, expanding capacity or sort of adding functions, are there other types of development that might be useful? So I'm thinking here perhaps of looking at offsetting sort of net gain, for example, or housing development, or what other kinds of development do you think would be relevant other than sort of just that capacity type development project?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the incoming environment bill will put a mandatory requirement for all new developments to have biodiversity net gain, 10% biodiversity net gain. A lot of developers won't be able to achieve that within their land holding, so we'll have to look at off-site options. And a lot of sports facilities, particularly those with large areas of green space, such as golf clubs, may be well placed to offer up their land as biodiversity net gain land, essentially, to these developers and gain a revenue in that way, whilst also, of course, benefiting biodiversity in the local area. So there's a real opportunity to look beyond improving our sports pitches, which of course we want to do. But it's a time now to think outside the box and think how you can make a change within your local community rather than perhaps just within your facility.
I mean, that's a really fascinating potential there. I mean, I'm almost thinking here that if you could be sort of renting your land, if you like, your space that you may have available on your site, and actually being able to get two things from it. You can be improving the habitat diversity and the sort of the ecology and ecosystem value on your site, but at the same time you're getting a revenue stream. Wow! So how might sort of and how easy do you think are those kind of schemes and sort of funding streams to get hold of, do you think?
Well, I think with those, it really would be on a case-by-case basis. What we're looking at doing at the moment is looking at emerging local plans and seeing whether biodiversity net gain is one of their key policies within local plans. So I'll be within the local planning authority. So it'll just be keeping an eye out for local developments within that same planning authority that your facility may be in. But we can go beyond looking at biodiversity net gain as well. If you want to look at more sort of biodiversity enhancement projects, there's funds available through Natural England as part of the Countryside Stewardship Scheme. I've helped a golf club in the past, Northamptonshire County Golf Club, to achieve funding through that to help with their woodland management, and they were successful in getting that funding. So that's not only benefited the woodland management on the golf course, but of course, woodland management is really key for improving sports surfaces on a golf course, and overall playability. So there's a whole number of benefits that we can get from doing these projects. And like I say, it's just really using this time to think about where you want to be, how you want to set yourself aside from other facilities in your local area, and look at the funding that's available.
I mean, and that strikes me as a great opportunity to ensure that the good work that sports facilities, golf clubs are doing in terms of looking at habitat change, biodiversity improvement schemes, or just managing the landscape in a way which is enhancing it. It's a good way, it strikes me, if there's funding available, that kind of almost ring fences those operations, and especially when budgets are tight, going through the sort of the current sort of situation that we are, that's helping to protect those ongoing works and developments without those kind of being at jeopardy of no cash, no project.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And this is a time of year where, even with little funds, we can be cracking on with sorts of biodiversity enhancements and things like that. But I think just going back to other developments, perhaps not biodiversity related, using this time now to think about projects that you've been putting off for a long time, that perhaps membership have been getting on at you about. There's not enough car parking spaces. I don't know. The tennis pitch isn't up to scratch, things like that. Tennis court, sorry, wrong wording. So there's funding available for those too. And I think maybe a lot of people aren't aware of that. And like I said, the application forms are no doubt a bit confusing and a bit long, and it will probably have you scratching your head quite a while. But I think now is the time to really tap into that funding and show that this industry is resilient, and we do want to stand up, and we do want to carry on and push forward. And this is a blip, and
Absolutely.
we're going to carry on, and we want to encourage you guys that we're here to help, and we can help you with that, whatever it may be, whether it's looking at the funding that's available to you, helping you apply for that funding, all sorts.
No,
Really.
absolutely.
Yeah.
How easy is it? I mean, you've gone away and you've done you've gone and spent time looking at funding. How easy is it to find this funding sources and the information about it? I would imagine it might be quite tricky and quite disparate and spread far and wide.
I think the key thing is that the funding itself, and finding the resources where to get this funding from, is relatively easy, but then it's finding out which one you want to tap into. There's a lot of different criteria, which some places may fit into and some places may not. There's, for example, the landfill funding I mentioned earlier. The landfill funding is provided by secondary sort of bodies, if you like, and the criteria for those are very different. So for one company, it may be that you have to be within 2.5 miles of a landfill, a registered landfill, and for others it may be up to 10 miles. So it's making sure you fit into those. And then for some of them, they won't fund any sport related projects, and others will. Or like I mentioned earlier, there's the loophole where if you've got a clubhouse and it benefits the community in other ways beyond sport, then you can fit into that criteria. So I think that's the tricky bit, is finding out which one works best for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think again, it's key to understand that this kind of funding that we're talking about for projects, it's not a quick fix like the crisis funding, the emergency funding that's been made available. These are funding revenues, funding resources that have been going on for years. The Football Foundation and things like that. And it's not like you're going to apply and perhaps get it next month or in a couple of months' time. But that's the whole point about planning for the future. So this might be a project you don't want to, kick off, or you won't be able to kick off until next year. But why not, start sowing the seed now and hope that something grows from it.
I'd have to remember that pun. That's a great one. That is sowing that seed. But I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The more I've been thinking about this topic, the more I was kind of like, why wouldn't you be thinking of using some of this time? Okay, time is precious because many sports facilities may well be on sort of skeleton staff with people on furlough, but it really is an opportunity to start looking at, well, what could we do into the future, the other side of this pandemic situation, into the future, just bringing forward some of those development plans. Now's a great time to be doing it. Now's a great time to be looking for funding. And I think kind of one of the things is kind of finding that help and supporting clubs to be able to get access to that funding, and sort of knowing the angles to look for, and the sort of how you can be operating within these schemes without kind of, sometimes I guess there's a degree of wiggle room in these schemes to actually allow a broader cross section of facilities to actually access this funding. And if you think a bit blinkered and narrow vision, you might end up missing some really good opportunities.
So we've just got a question about water management in there. Okay, that's interesting. I was going to look at this being a good time to look at the sort of sustainable management overall of your facility. I've not specifically looked at water management, but I'm sure there is something there. I've tried having a look at what different funding is available in terms of sustainable projects and things like that, and there's quite a few different funding projects, such as the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust for Sustainable Futures. I've not had a proper look into that, but that could be one way of looking at things. And I think what would be quite useful is to carry out sustainability audits at this time. So in your facilities, there's probably no one around apart from, like Richard said, a few skeleton staff. Why not see where you can make cost savings? Looking at your energy budgets and things like that. There's energy companies who, if you switch to them, will give you free LED light bulbs, so you can change all of them, which over time is a big cost saving. And all these different things. Water management, I must say, I've not looked at, but I will certainly look at it, and I'm sure there's something.
I mean, I think from the water management point of view, that's tapping into, again, nice pun, Chris, well done. Hey, it's puntastic. So tapping into the water sort of management, sustainable water, I think quite often sort of thinking about water management, especially when you come from an infrastructure point of view, these can be quite costly projects. And this strikes me as a sort of an excellent way to think about development of your facility from a sustainability, but also a resilience point of view on your sports facility. So water capture, reuse, harvesting, fitting into how do our sports facilities fit into sustainable drainage schemes, and ensure that we meet those criteria. And in essence, making more with what we're getting naturally. I think there's a tremendous opportunity, and a well-designed scheme could really help us with that. And I guess looking at potential funding sources, that's really a possibility. So yeah, happy to sort of talk and work with people about what their thoughts, what they're looking to achieve on their site, and looking, and sometimes it is being creative and looking at what funding schemes are out there, because quite often the funding schemes themselves might not have thought about sport or using it in this way, and that can be a great case study.
A lot of them say they want innovative projects to work on, so even the bigger development funding schemes. So if you can be innovative and look at different sustainable drainage designs, I don't see why that couldn't fit into one of the other sort of funding schemes that are provided by sports organisations around the UK. So certainly something to look into.
Absolutely. And I think the topic of water management and sort of Pete Nicholson, it's a great comment there, because I tell you what, after the winter we've just had in Yorkshire, my groundsman contacted me this week and said, you know what, we've commissioned the irrigation system, we're irrigating. And it was like, you're chuffing what? After all that rain, how can we have to irrigate now? We're only in April, but we're now moving into that point where water management is becoming a critical issue, and that mixed in with having sort of reduced staffing levels potentially at facilities could be a critical issue. So I think that in itself is probably going to be a topic we're going to try and wrestle with in one of these streams as a dedicated topic in water management, water, sort of how to get the best out of the water that we've got and how can we doing things a little more sustainably. So Pete, very much sort of come back when we're doing that stream, because I think there'll be some really good useful information for you guys on there. And so let's have a little look at sort of a question here from Craig Peach. Our golf club has a skeleton workforce currently and is operating on a shoestring. We have new owners intent on developing the clubhouse and creating opportunities for other grassroots sports within the course boundaries. What is the first step? Well, that's a great question, and that's a great strategy. Sort of, Sophie, is there anything that you could add, or STRI potentially might be able to help with these guys on?
Yeah, so yeah, wow. Like we mentioned earlier, I think becoming a multifunctional sports facility is what a lot of sports facilities are going to have to do in the future. So great that your owners are sort of taking those steps to going towards that. Obviously, it's not a great time, like you say. You're currently working on a bit of a shoestring budget, but the funding opportunities that I've identified over the last week are certainly available to help with projects such as this, particularly where it's looking at different grassroots sports, getting different people in from around the community, and encouraging young people, encouraging women, ethnic minority groups are all, a big part of this. And funding is available if you want to enhance your facility to benefit that community, then it's available. We can help you with that if you would like, for sure. What we need to make sure is that the reasons that you're developing the golf facility into this multi facility are true and are it's a real passion of yours and you're doing it for the right reasons. Then we can certainly identify the right funding.
Absolutely,
And
I
get
think
you started on that. Yeah.
Quite often it's matching the right scheme with the right opportunity, the right development. So very much sort of, Craig, what you're talking about there in terms of developing clubhouse, looking at how and then sort of that might be from an infrastructure, facilities, adding new dimensions to the club, but also there is thinking about within that, can that clubhouse then, if we're looking about redevelopment, be made to be more sustainable? So you've got this nice messaging about sustainability that can be wrapped up within these developments as well. So I think that's definitely something that we can work with, and with our planning an environment department, that's the remit, that's the job, is to help work with people on these type of projects. So Craig, yeah, absolutely, and what we'll do is we'll catch up with you offline and see if there's anything we can do to help on that. And sort of STRI's own Gary Smith asked a question here. He says, are there guidelines on the limits to the cash amounts clubs can apply for?
Yeah, so depending on the scheme that is applied for, they're really wide ranging. So there's grants from as little as £500 all the way up to £150,000 and beyond. One of the schemes, which is the London Marathon Trust, I think it's called, you have to be specifically invited to apply for that, and that goes beyond that £150,000 fund. But that tends to be it. So a lot of the schemes will have a small grant scheme, and then, like for Sport England, they then have a community asset fund, which goes up to a bigger budget, and similar for other providers as well. So I think it's important not to be greedy, of course, because we'd all like probably the biggest amount that we can get, but try and be realistic and think about what that money would really mean to you and what it would really help. What's priority for you? And like I say, with these sorts of bigger projects, they're not things that are going to happen really by the end of this year. So think about how you can sort of break them up into phases even. And that would surely help with the funding application too, if you can show that you've thought about it in a more logical way.
And so thinking about it, Sophie, is there an opportunity there if you're breaking a job down or a development into phases, maybe because of what those phases are doing, or they're very distinct types of developments? I mean, presumably there would be an opportunity to seek for different funding streams for different phases, for example, as part of that bigger overall development.
I guess so. I mean, I think a lot of the schemes do say they won't provide funding to projects that they've already provided funding for. So,
Yes.
which makes sense. But I guess if there's different chunks that you can split it off into, perhaps one is improving your sports pitch, whereas the other is looking at woodland management, and they're two completely separate things. Yes, they're at the same facility, but they have two completely different goals at the end of the day. So I don't see why you couldn't split them across different sort of funding schemes at all. I think one thing to recognise as well is that quite a lot of them do identify that they will only provide funding for not for profit companies. So it's bearing that in mind as well. Of course, there's others that will. So it's just again making sure you find the funding that's right for you.
Getting the right scheme for the right development. But the first stage is to identify what developments you're looking to do, your strategic objectives with those developments. And I guess then that's where getting some help, getting some advice, wherever that's from, STRI, we've got guys and gals like Sophie that can help with that. So I think that's really important. Okay, guys. So has anyone got any specific questions? Oh, here's one that we may or may not be able to answer, but Pete will have a go at it. Are there any new schemes for the youngsters in the pipeline? Apprenticeships, better advice when in school? Well, I know from the apprenticeships point of view, I think from a training point of view, there are schemes. The government has been, and I suspect after COVID-19 we'll be looking particularly as these type of schemes to push them forward, is to get more people into apprenticeships. And I think there is a real opportunity then to link that with education and ongoing education, so we can get better trained, motivated boys and girls coming in, and they see it as a career. They see turf management as a career and a valuable career, and all the different branches of it. It's from mechanics to the agronomy, through to the ecology, through to sort of the technical side of it, the spraying, all of that stuff. And I think those type of schemes will be there, and they are there. And I think ultimately what will happen is they'll be strengthened.
I think you've answered that perfectly. I can't add anything to
that. and I think that's important, as well as, so at the moment we're all focused about, we've spent quite a bit of time focusing on turf management and sort of essential maintenance. What is it we must do? Protecting the safety and health of our workforce and each other. But I think now's the time where we need to look at sort of strategic bounce back, if you like. How are we going to bounce back when restrictions end? What we're going to look at, how we're going to look at sort of our sports facilities, how are we going to make them as competitive as they can be, attract members, attract players to come back, whether it's soccer, cricket, rugby, golf. Now's the time to be thinking about it. Be proactive, be positive, and get the advice and the help that's out there. So I think that's really important. Guys, as everyone else on these streams will be more than aware, I will talk until sort of everyone is on their knees crying, "Shut that man up." So unless anyone's got any specific questions,
we've missed one.
Have we missed one?
We've missed one. Will Curran.
Will Curran, there we go. Good spot. You see, I'm not on the ball. It's a good. That's why two sets of eyes are better than one. So, Will, thank you very much for your question. So we work on a course which is 5 greenkeepers, but we have thousands of trees which have arguably been left to their own devices. This is the classic tree management question. I'm going to back away out of the room at this point. And Sophie, that's definitely your sphere. or Bob Taylor, but we don't have enough time for Bob to be doing this. So, Sophie, you're going to have to stand in as a Bob Taylor.
I think in terms of there's only 5 of you and a lot of trees, so funding would probably benefit you quite a lot. Like I mentioned earlier, worked with Northamptonshire County Golf Club in the past, and helped them secure countryside stewardship funding, which was specifically for woodland management. So there's separate annexes that you can apply for. It can be woodland management, woodland creation, I believe, hedgerow and boundary management and maintenance, and there's some other ones as well. So it may be worth looking into that. What you do need as part of that is a woodland management plan, because you can't just go in willy-nilly and think, oh, I'll chop that tree down, I'll chop that tree down. Bob Taylor will tell you off if you do that. Nobody wants to get on the wrong side of Bob. So a woodland management plan as well is what you would need to look into, to make sure that the management of those trees in the future is appropriate, not only for the biodiversity purposes, but also for the golf course, because we recognise, of course, that it is a golf course first and foremost. So it needs to take that into account too. And then what the funding, if you were able to apply for that through Natural England, would do is it would break down payments that would assist you in that woodland management plan. So whether it be payments to help with purchasing new why can't I think of the word? Things to help you chop down the trees. Equipment. There we go. New equipment to help you with that. Whether it's to actually pay for external tree management people to come in, tree surgeons and things like that. It can help towards all those sorts of different funds. So it's certainly something worth looking into. I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you about it. But yeah, I think that helps.
No, absolutely. And I think now's a good time to be thinking about that. I know everyone's under pressure, but it's a bit of time to stop and think about the plan coming out, and then being aware that there may be support available. That's critical, because you can then start to tackle some of those jobs that you've always wanted to crack on with, but there's always been some roadblock in the way. So great question, Will. I'm kind of glad I didn't miss that. That was a really good one. And so this is just an open question, because I mean, what happens is these videos stay on Facebook in perpetuum. They end up also going on STRI's YouTube. But if anyone does have any questions after the stream finishes, please still put them in comments, because we'll come back to you. And one of the things I want to sort of push out there to you guys is, what are there any specific topics? We touched on water management. That's a great topic. Are there any particular topics that you guys would like us to talk about? Because STRI, we've got all kinds of people with all kinds of backgrounds and experiences, and we could bring someone on and we can talk about very specific topics. So any comments, any questions, or any sort of ideas, fire them into the comments, and we'll look at them and see if we can pull together some sort of thematic topics. Our intention is very much to keep on with these streams and keep rocking and rolling with them, because I enjoy them, and my colleagues who've been on them enjoy them. I won't be talking all the time, thank goodness. I will need to take a break, but very much I think it's a good opportunity to sort of engage, and for you guys to quiz the expert, and I think that's a good way of looking at it. And just as one last question there from Steve Dudley Brown, also looking at training providers to use their sites for teaching. Absolutely, yes, because as a training provider ourselves, STRI, we're lucky we have a unique facility and for teaching and sort of education. But I've done many seminars and teaching events at golf clubs, and I think that's really important that you look at how your business model at your golf club or your sports facility, how can you diversify? And it may be that you're looking at creating links with local training providers that can use that as a base. As a training provider, you absolutely want something which is nice and consistent. You know what you're getting, you know what the availability is like. And that could be a really good revenue stream. Because it doesn't matter what the training is. If you've got a room, you've got a projector, you could put on a sandwich lunch, happy days. You've got a nice little sub business there that will do very nicely. And I know quite a few golf clubs and sports facilities that do that. So it is something that's really worth considering.
I think just putting my ecologist hat on again as well. I was having to think earlier, I did notice on Twitter that obviously a lot of biodiversity recording groups can't get out at the moment to their usual stomping grounds to record their butterflies or their birds or whatever they record. So they are putting a call out to the public, to you guys, to go out and record things yourself. So whilst there may be a skeleton staff working at your facility at the moment, maybe use this time to jot down what you see as you're going around and keep as a list, and use that to help the local community, to help that record centre, because they really need it right now. And I know it's not helping with funding or anything like that, but I think if we can give back where we can, then that's really great. What we could do in the future when things are back to normal, organise a buyer blitz, have it as a fundraising day to raise funds for that new tea or for that new disabled toilet that you've been meaning to get around to for a long time. So there's other sort of fundraising ideas that you can do internally. It's not just about looking at these external fund providers too. So thinking about things like that too during this time is really, really useful.
And just as a quick, hopefully a final word from me, everyone has heard that from me before. Just one more thing.
Just a half an hour webcast.
Just a half. Honestly, I'll shut up shortly. But one of the things we've been looking at today was sort of in sort of researching for this stream was very much, if staff are furloughed, they are entitled to be doing training. So if you want to get your guys and girls who are furloughed getting them to do training, they can do in-house training as well. What they can't do is they can't then work on revenue generating aspects of the business, but training is one of the areas that government's identified that furlough staff can do. So that's a good opportunity to get everyone to take the time, which is time that qualifying people don't have, to actually go off and do that. So whether it's going to be able to do your ident on grasses, different types of butterfly, different types of diseases, whatever it might be, or learning about different aspects of turf maintenance machinery, there are opportunities there. Be positive, be creative, look for the opportunity and see if we can come out of this with better skills, better knowledge, because that will help us all in the long run. So I'm going to shut up. So I'm going to give the opportunity now for Sophie to have a last word, sum up what her thoughts are in terms of the real sort of benefits or key points of today's stream in terms of development and funding.
Yeah, so I think just to echo what you've just said, Christian, it's a time to really grab those opportunities. Think about those things that you've been putting aside and thinking, I'll do that next week, I'll do that over the winter when I've got more time. Do it now. If you can, if you've got the time, do it now. Get in contact with us if you want to. We are more than happy to help you, even if it's just to chat on the phone. You might be self-isolating all by yourself and just want to chat. We're here to do that too if you want. That's fine. Might be a bit weird. But we just want to make sure that things tick over and sport continues to be great and continues to be valued by not just the people in the industry, but the people who are going to come out of this and think, God, I really should take up golf, or I really should start playing tennis again. We want to make sure that you guys are the best that you can be. So, yeah. You're
not alone.
You're not alone, no.
Absolutely. Right, guys, I think we'll have to wrap it up there. Glad we got our sound back and we could keep all of you guys on board. So next Wednesday, 4 o'clock, it's going to be another webinar, and that's another stream. That's our intention to keep these going forward. So look out on the social media for the themes, topics. Get back to us with what kind of topics you'd like us to talk about, and we'll look at putting together a series of presentations. And stay safe out there, keep well, and we look forward to talking to you same time next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Bye.